Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Awakened Destiny. Yes, it's a solo episode. Fight me. In today's episode, I want to start by saying, how are you, DestinedHero?
I am doing well, DestinedSoldier. I am doing well. Life has been life, but I've been doing well, playing the video games, doing the grind as per usual. How are you doing, my friend?
Life is life. Been feeling more free lately,
Yeah,
and I'm feeling free to be myself again, just continue escaping reality like I was doing before.
that is always a good thing
I
because
miss
obviously I'm not gonna.
being able to escape reality freely without interruption. It has been
Yeah,
so annoying.
obviously I won't dive into it, but yes, I know that situation. It's a lot, but yeah, nonetheless, I do want to say we are obviously back with another episode for you guys of Awakened Destiny, the podcast ran by passionate gamers. And today's subject, well, actually, wait, no. Scratch!
Gonna full stop.
Okay, hold on.
Before we jump to today's subject, I want to
Subject.
say, because we do this in every episode of Awakened Destiny, what games have you been playing lately?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, and my brain just died. But I have been playing the remaster of Horizon Zero Dawn, which that's about to be brought up a lot. So that's been great. I've enjoyed that. The PS5 really did this game more justice than I thought it would because initially when the announcement came out, I was like, this feels pointless. But now I'm just like, I'm playing this at 60 FPS and it's basically 4K and it looks like a whole different game. It feels so much better. And then obviously outside of that, I'm streaming Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and I have been playing a bunch of Fortnite trying to get the Battle Pass done. What have you been playing, Destined Soldier?
And I have been in between a lot of games. I keep trying to get back into Disney Dreamlight Valley, but the Dreamlight Valley is being rude and not giving me the character I still need, the fairy godmother, to continue the story. So I am unable to get the shadowy version of myself. So I ended up going back to Miside and finishing that game off. That game has been a blast. I really love that game still. There's so much interesting things to see within that game, and I love it a lot. And I cannot think of any other game I've been playing lately, but I'm trying to load Steam so I can remember if there are any others.
Well, obviously outside of Fortnite, we just had a whole sesh there.
Yeah, we had a very different session there. I mean, I've been hanging out in Chill Out VR again. I'm back in that. Oh my. I'm back in that fun little thing.
Also, I want to say I am, because I usually ask what games we're looking forward to, and I kind of am starting to really look forward to Assassin's
I
Creed
think that's
Shadows more and more I
something.
think about.
Isn't that something we usually bring up at the end?
No, well, sometimes we usually do in the beginning though.
I don't remember us ever doing that in the beginning. I know we
Did like
just
the first two
recently
or three
started
episodes.
doing like what we're been playing recently.
Well, yeah, we've done that since episode 1 though. Both of those things actually. We just kind of stopped doing the second part.
No, I thought we moved it
Because
I didn't even remember us. Yeah,
usually I say, what have you been playing lately and what are you looking forward to? And that's why I'm mad at myself for butchering the line, but I butchered it. Because my brain was like, because I have an intro that I also like to do, so like there's kind of just two different things.
I should be muting while you're talking if I'm gonna be typing. I accidentally have keyboard in the middle if you're talking.
Oh well, Geo's just gonna have to edit out this section anyways.
Probably. I don't know. It's unimportant. Geo, cut everything.
Linda.
Geo will fix it. Geo will fix everything. I have been wanting to get into other games. Like, I keep wanting to get back into Brutal Legend. Probably start that from scratch and just go from there. I can't
That's
figure out
fair.
Changed for the life of me, but I really want to get into that game. There's, it's such an interesting game.
That's fair. I know probably after I finish Horizon, I'm probably gonna start Dragon Age Veilguard. I know it was the most popular game in that franchise. It's not even a franchise I grew up with, but kind of want to give it a try since it's free on PS Plus. And then, other than that, I also am probably gonna play Legend of Dragoon because I never got to finish it on PS1. So I'm probably gonna give that game a go and finish that game since I played it a lot during my childhood. I just got frustrated too easily.
Wait, which game did you say?
Legend of Dragoon, or I should say Legend of the Dragoon.
Oh yeah,
That
I don't think I've ever played that one, but I know I still
then
have a lot of games. Like I have a game I bought a while back, specifically for streaming. It's called Gory Cuddly Carnage, and it looks fun and adorable. I need to put some hours into it because in the points shop they have some really nice emoticons and stickers I can get, but I have to put hours into the game first.
that sounds chaotic, but that does sound fun. I do have a backlog to get through. That's why I'm trying to finish Zero Dawn and then work my way towards other games. But speaking of Horizon and everything of everything, today's subject ironically comes from what I've been seeing on Twitter a lot lately, because a lot of people have been saying stuff like, oh, Horizon Zero Dawn's not an RPG. So I beg the question to you viewers, what makes an RPG? Because that's exactly what today's episode is going to be about.
And that is where we will start today's topic. So, in RPGs, there are a lot of different elements, and here in front of me, I wrote down a list of what we can define as an RPG. We got the who, what, when, where, why, and how of RPGs. A whole different list that will help us differentiate RPGs from non-RPGs. And the first one, obviously, to tackle is who. Who are the main protagonists and antagonists of RPGs? And
And I
who are the main protagonists and antagonists in non-RPGs? That one's
and
probably
I'm
going to
gonna
be a bit tougher to tackle because I don't know very many non-RPGs other than like your standard shooter games like COD or
um,
scrolling text games. But those
so
usually don't have antagonists.
I'm gonna start off. I'll start off this one personally. So RPGs, obviously, before I even overly dive into the who, they have been around for a very long time. Like the first thing I think of when I think of RPGs is the very first Dragon Quest game, the very first Final Fantasy. Those are very OG RPGs, I would say. They might even go potentially back further than that. I can't quite remember for sure, but they go back a really, really long time. And like the first Final Fantasy, for example, you don't have like any set characters, but you have like job classes. Yeah, job classes, because you have a warrior, you have a black mage, a blue mage, a red mage, white mage. Actually, you might not have the red or blue mage. I can't remember. I don't remember if they got that far in the first game, but they got a lot of different classes. And your antagonist, I don't remember if they went and called him Garland or if they went and called him Chaos. But he was obviously the main villain, but Final Fantasy did not start off with any set characters like we see in the newer installments as of recently, with obviously Cloud, Clive, Noctis, and then obviously the antagonist being Sephiroth, Aradin, Ultima from 16, so on and so forth. And that right there, what makes them even like stand out from, say, I can't really use Devil May Cry because they're made by Japanese people. Like, we'll say Spider-Man, I guess, because Marvel Spider-Man, great game, but you shut up. Oh God, Google, shut up. It overheard me.
Google's interrupting
But-
everything.
But basically what I feel like stands out, and this is kind of what I think about most, is the weapons. usually an RPG that has like an oversized sword or like a really dope magic user, or giant creatures like in Final Fantasy's case against summons. Basically, more fantasy than your like action adventure games, your shooters, your uh what else, what have you, really, honestly.
This also differentiates RPGs from like a regular medieval era game, because medieval is commonly used for RPG and just like fantasy in general. But even medieval level games don't always lean towards RPG. They lean towards, well, being a knight, going around and adventuring, not slaying dragons because they aren't in medieval eras, they're just myths. It's mostly
Yes.
just like living back in like the kingdoms, castles, peasants, kings, queens era of like how we used to live years and years and years and years ago. Back in swords and crossbows era with a lot of armor.
Yep. And to go further into like the who, I mean, obviously the who is the main protagonist, and usually that protagonist role is most of the time when it's a good RPG, like well, I shouldn't say good RPG. There's a lot of good ones, but like in FF7's case or 16, well, somewhat 16's case, usually the protagonist has a backstory with the main antagonist, like Cloud and Sephiroth. Their backstory goes way back, like 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, because Cloud wanted to be a soldier and Sephiroth burned down his hometown, etc., etc. You all know the story. You've played the game, I'm sure. Um, Whereas, like, I don't even. Kind of like Link's. Like, we'll use Zelda here. Zelda in action adventure, where Link doesn't really have beef with Ganondorf. His childhood isn't really traumatic. Like, his story is kind of just told through Zelda more than it is himself. Where you're going after Ganondorf, you're trying to stop him from taking over Hyrule, so on and so forth. And to me, that's kind of what separates the two. Is usually in an RPG, the main character has a backstory that leads up to you wanting to eventually kill the antagonist, not the protagonist. Whereas other games, your your backstory is not really there with the antagonist. Your backstory is there from like another character, essentially.
Yeah, and to differentiate who's as well, the who goes for any kind of main style character. Like in World of Warcraft, you create your own character and they become the hero of Azeroth. They defeat every single antagonist. World of Warcraft has multiple antagonists. Of course, the primary one I'm thinking of, when you create a certain hero, you can create a Death Knight, and with that, your start point is while you're under control of the main antagonist of that era, Arthas. So you have already automatically are a protagonist who has a connection with the antagonist because you died by the Lich King's hands and you're being reborn as one of his servants, one of his knights, one of his swords, I guess. No, whatever you use, axes, whatever. You're
Yes.
basically fighting for the Lich King for at least a couple hours is the fastest I've been able to speedrun that start point. And after that, you start growing a connection with like the other knights that fell under his control. Or, I mean, more specifically, Darian Mograine, who had the corrupted Ashbringer. You guys start getting a bit of a connection, and then Darian Mograine gets a bit of a connection with Tyrion Fortering, who is about to die to the Lich King. But Darian Mograine decides to give him the corrupted Ashbringer, making it uncorrupted, and suddenly Tyrion Fortering stands a chance against the Lich King, and the Lich King flees.
Yes.
That is definitely
Which,
a good main like sideline of a main character, your character, and an antagonist character, the Lich King, Arthas.
which
Those
is
are
what
two very important roles in World of Warcraft. Even if you're not a Death Knight, you're still gonna end up teaming up with Death Knights who went through that storyline. It won't
which
matter
is
for
what
you because you're still the main character in that story, but it doesn't matter.
differs from, we'll say, most modern day JRPGs, regular RPGs. Mostly JRPGs, because modern day RPGs, like, or not modern, regular RPGs like Skyrim, you already create your own character and beef with all to win and all that stuff. But like, where it differs is something again like Final Fantasy, whether it's Cloud and Sephiroth, Zidane and Kuja, Tidus, Seymour, so on and so forth. It's not, it obviously one's an MMO, but like there is other single player RPGs out there that do what World of Warcraft did. You're creating your character, the main antagonist. You are either immediately like introduced to him, or eventually you do get introduced to him, and so on and so forth. What have ya?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for World of Warcraft's case anyway, Arthas's backstory is not really touched on upon that much unless you played the previous Warcraft games, which I have not, but I did watch a full storyline between Arthas and Sylvanas of like how they got to where they are before Sylvanas starts teaming up with the Jailer in Shadowlands and before you kill Arthas in Icecrown Citadel. There's a whole backstory that leads them to where they are today. I don't know where Sylvanas is today, but I know we did not kill her while she was fighting with Jailer. She ends up getting reformed, if you will, but not in the worst way. I think she's hanging out with Uther as far as I can tell these days. Just a guess, since they share the same wound from Arthas.
Probably.
But
That's like similar to Final Fantasy 7. If you're just playing FF7, you're not gonna know who Zack is until you play Crisis Core. Realistically, and it's like you won't. The only part about like the main incident and what leads up to all the current events is Genesis shows up during said incident, which does not happen in the original. Nor does it happen in the Rebirth. So
yeah, we only see Genesis in Crisis Core because supposedly, according to Crisis Core, Genesis should be like dead, should be obliterated. But
pretty much, but you don't kill him. So yeah, that's just Cerberus' secret ending.
yeah, who knows? If they ever remaster Dirge of Cerberus and bring it back for the PS5, who knows? But
anyways, enough about the who.
Yeah, I think we've gotten pretty much who. Although, for who in non-RPGs, I could not say. Because it usually comes down to what kind of, like, what game. So, for who in Devil May Cry, you're playing as, like, either Dante or Nero. Or a bunch of other characters in Devil May Cry 5.
Well, actually, I think I got a good idea for this. But yeah, you got Dante and Nero, Devil May Cry 5. And 4 for that matter. And yes, that's obviously hack and slash. And then I don't know if I actually don't remember if the main villain really is Sparta or not, because it's been a while. I don't remember the storyline as much as I used to.
It's not Sparta. Sparta is the father of both Virgil and Dante. The main villain is usually Virgil, because the brother rivalry that they share. So it's not
5,
too
it's
different from an RPG, because like Dante and Nero, they've always had a kind of rivalry going on similar to Cloud and Sephiroth, but of course Cloud and Sephiroth's case is very much different.
Very personal.
They're not quite related, but they do have the same kind of experimental stuff done to them.
Yeah,
but in Sephiroth's case, it's worse because, well, Sephiroth found out about he got clinically insane. He has a very different mindset than Cloud. Cloud knows he was also experimented on, but he didn't completely lose his mind like Sephiroth.
No, Cloud went through a bunch of trauma.
Controlled by Sephiroth.
Yeah, Cloud went through just straight up trauma basically because of Sephiroth. I guess hatred towards Sephiroth is because obviously Nibelheim burns down. And eventually that leads to them leaving Nibelheim. Zack dies, he gets the Buster Sword, doesn't realize who Zack is, and then obviously the big impactful scene, Aerith dies, and that eventually leads to the live stream sequence of Tifa helping him find himself again, and then you go and fight Sephiroth. But
Pretty
their
much.
feud, their feud, we'll say, is very much like one of the more personal ones if you really look past the surface level of it.
Oh yeah, it is a very personal
And
feud. Unlike, well, I suppose in Dante's case, his feud is still kind of personal. I don't know how so, because again, I honestly also don't remember much about the Devil May Cry story. Even though I played Devil May Cry 4 to absolute oblivion. I do not
but
remember who the main antagonist was for DMC 4.
but if more cases of who you play in non-RPGs, Mario is also a good example because literally, I guess if you count Mario movie lore, you get sucked into the Mushroom Kingdom, but bro just kind of beefs with Bowser because he wants to beef with Bowser. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously Mario has RPG games, but like the main
I mean,
premise of the platformers.
in all fairness, in Mario's case, Bowser just wants to kidnap Princess Peach for the sake of kidnapping Princess Peach.
Yeah, it's kind of the same old song and dance. I feel like most like RPGs versus non-RPGs. RPGs usually have like the more deeper story to them. I mean, I'm sure Devil May Cry is deeper if I could just remember it for the life of me, but I don't. But it also depends on developers, because like even the original God of War, which is also not an RPG, still is pretty deep for because Kratos has hatred because he was betrayed by the gods into killing his family, and he goes on a whole revenge tour. But you don't have the what makes an RPG into that series, into the original God of War series.
Yeah, because in the original God of War, it's all hack and slash. Of course, then again, when I think about it, the new God of War, the current era of God of War that we're in, it doesn't particularly have very many RPG elements that I can think of either.
So so the further you get into those, though, you can actually craft better armor and gear, and you do get. I think you have a skill tree. I don't remember. I didn't get far because I got annoyed with those games, fortunately. But they do fall under the RPG
I
category.
do not remember a skill tree. See, that's what I was thinking about. Because I know they also got vendors where you can buy better armor and whatnot if you find enough gold. But I did not
Yeah,
get that far into the game either. I think I got
I've,
as far
I've
as one of the blacksmiths you can buy from,
I
and
need
that
to
was it. Cause
eventually
I
get
got
back to.
completely confused on how to do anything in that game properly. I have
I
no
might
hate for
eventually get back to.
The new God of War games. They are great. I am just an idiot, and I don't understand their gameplay style as well as I would hope.
I definitely understand the gameplay. I really struggle with the exploration sometimes, unfortunately, which I also think separates an RPG from non-RPGs, because any good RPG, whether it's linear or open world, you're gonna have a lot of exploration, whereas like again, Devil May Cry, it didn't really have that much exploration. You were just kind of
No.
going from point A to point B.
Devil May Cry is very linear. There's a lot to explore in each level, but it's very linear because each level is just like secret loot you can find for future use, or stronger demons you can fight to get more red orbs or whatnot, what have you, or just secret
Yeah,
demons you can fight to get secret loot behind said demons, because
yeah.
it's all varying. It's still linear level by level,
Which
and you're just
RPGs do
continuing
have.
through the story
Which
through
RPGs
going through
do
different
have that.
levels, and you're just jumping to different locations in each level.
Which RPGs do have that, but like another thing that I would say separates them, because I don't see it in too many non-RPGs, at least to me, anyways. I could be wrong and stupid, but a lot of RPGs have a lot of side quests. Whereas non-RPGs, you're just kind of either getting collectibles or maybe something here and there, but you're kind of just going straight forward in most cases, unless it's like a platformer.
That does bring me to another point that I just thought of is another thing of what makes an RPG is usually a health bar UI, which Devil May
Oh
Cry
yeah.
does incidentally have. It also has like a few power bars and whatnot, a lot of like switching between. Maybe Devil May Cry might be an RPG somewhere in there, because I know you can also upgrade each stance in a certain way, kind of like a skill tree. There's a little bit more to Devil May Cry than I remember that might make it an RPG that I'm just now remembering. Wait a minute.
It's just saying. I mean, it definitely crosses the line almost, but like, yeah, it's everywhere I look, it's just saying hack and slash, which I mean, it kind of is because
It is
you
a
don't really
hack and
have.
slash, but it also comes down to like the things you can do in Devil May Cry, which you can switch between weapons. You can
y-
switch. You can unlock different weapons as well, which is kind of like Onimusha
Yeah,
style, where you're going around like in Onimusha 2. I did not mean to say it like that. You're running around as Junpei, and the farther you get, the more orbs you collect. You can go down and unlock more weapons. I don't know if it was the
yeah,
more
which
orbs
is
you collect from the Nobunaga's men,
it
but
it it is that I do remember that, but it's kind of see that those two games in the original God of War kind of they hit that line of where they could be an RPG, but they're definitely like you can tell they're not an RPG.
yeah, I'm weirdly remembering in Onimusha 2, I had this really cool overpowered lightning sword that I used and just like destroyed so many
It was
enemies with.
uh, yeah, no, it was fantastic. I cannot wait to play Onimusha 2 again.
Me neither. I'm excited that they're bringing it to modern day consoles, but I am gonna be a little. I can tell I'm gonna be a little disappointed because of the gameplay. I was initially disappointed at first when I bought the game at a pawn shop for like $12, but I still ended up having fun with it in the end, and it still ended up being worthwhile. I love the
And
game a lot,
it was definitely fun.
but the gameplay still really throws you off.
It definitely does. Onimusha took me a second to adapt to, but I literally beat and played all four of the PS2 era games. It was one. And it's a franchise that I'm always gonna hold in my heart, but yeah, it's still not an RPG.
See, I'm trying to remember the mechanics because I do know it also has a health bar, which is
Yeah, a lot of games tend to have health bars.
they
I
do.
just think like I
Well,
think
yeah,
another thing, and this is actually a thing I kind of forget about as well. There's a lot in RPGs like Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts. Mostly, I want to say mostly JRPGs, but I know Skyrim kind of has something cool like this. But like, you have your limit breaks, you have your abilities that like give you buffs on either your character or they nerf down a status of, or not nerf, they lower down like defense or something on an enemy versus like again Devil May Cry where you don't really have those kind of abilities that will nerf down someone's defense or their attack or slow them down, or they don't really have magic either. So like I think that's also
well,
something that
Devil May
separates our
Cry does kind of have magic when you really think about it. Because even then, like, when you're playing as Dante or Nero, they still have their kind of abilities where they can get stronger to clear away multiple enemies at a time. Their Devil Trigger is what it's called,
when
I
they
believe.
when they do have their devil trigger, but like even then like the enemies don't get any weaker from something and you can't stagger them. You're basically just constantly fighting them. Like the gameplay actually is probably the best example of RPG versus non-RPG.
Yeah, I
Cause
mean,
you
usually, I mean, there's a kind of differentiate between like action RPG and just action. For
yeah.
action, it's usually just slashing around, killing enemies, maybe using a power up or changing weapons to take down the enemies better that best suits you or the moment. And in action RPG, you're doing kind of a similar thing, but with a little bit more
Almost.
strategy. You're using magic, you're using heals to get yourself back up in shape. And in Devil
You
May
also give.
Cry, you don't have that kind of magic to heal yourself. Your heals come from killing enemies. You have to collect green orbs which heal you back up as far as you can collect them,
You like you
which
can
can be
buy
very
healing.
difficult. I mean, you
You
can
can
pay
you
for
can
it
buy
with
healing
red
items.
orbs, I think.
Basically, but like they have different healing stuff, but like you can't heal yourself like in Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Dragon Quest. I
Yeah,
don't
you can't
like and I
heal
don't.
yourself on the spot. You have to wait
Yeah,
until you get to a certain area or you kill a good amount of demons without taking damage, which can be
yeah.
very difficult. That's definitely a very skill-based game, which I sometimes have a skill issue with. That's for sure.
I don't really have much of a skill issue with Devil May Cry. I can like Devil May Cry. I've beaten at least 5. I've beaten on the hardest difficulty and did not die once because it just I don't struggle with hack and slash too much. It just becomes kind of too easy for me versus like recently FF7 Rebirth hard mode. Ooh, that's where you really have to strategize. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
absolutely
I've
need to
seen
know which character to
really,
have.
I've seen really interesting strategies with FF7 Rebirth. Like
Yeah,
you know that soundtrack playlist I sent you where it's just the gameplay with music only? Gameplay and cutscenes,
yeah,
music only? Well, I
yeah.
saw some interesting gameplay from the person who recorded that. I forgot his name. Right, he's probably not worth shouting out anyway, but he has hundreds of songs in a playlist from FF7 Rebirth from different moments. Like, I was watching through him fighting Bizarro Sephiroth, and he had a very interesting strategy of switching between characters and using different abilities from characters and getting their synergized abilities up, and not always using the limit break, but he definitely had some kind of strategy going there that helped him take down Bizarro. Especially when
Yeah,
Bizarro Sephiroth has those wings where you have to use specific spells, which he was
yeah.
not doing, interestingly enough.
That part was definitely something. But actually, that's a good example. The Bizarro Sephiroth fight where you really do need to strategize. I personally I've had 2 different ways of doing it, but my easiest way is just having Yuffie because she has all those styles she can use, like her ice style, her wind style,
Oh
fire
yeah,
style,
I
etc.,
think that's how
etc.
I
It
breezed
makes it
through it too.
so.
I used her to take down his wings based on each situation or each color his wings turn. Because his wings do turn a specific color for a specific element you can use that's strong
Which,
against the element he's using. Which you can use
which I
Yuffie
get.
easily for to like switch her style and
Yep.
just start using
Just
her ranged ability, have her
uh,
um,
do
melee
that.
weapon
Use
tossed and just start using
literally
her ranged attacks to do that elemental damage that's strong against his
do
wings.
do the elemental damage plus doppelganger. You're kind of just breezing through, honestly.
Oh yeah, her
Like
doppelganger is really OP. I love that ability.
like look.
Yuffie has become one of my favorite characters to fight with ever because she is definitely very well crafted in terms of her combat ability.
Yeah, no,
She
they did a
is
very
very
fantastic job.
complex, but once you get into how her abilities work, she is overpowered as hell.
She Her gameplay has a lot. Rebirth as a whole has a lot of depth. Like hard mode definitely makes you think a lot,
Oh
and
yeah. I
it gets
remember
challenging.
I remember having to think a lot. Like I had this island I went to. I was going through islands and I would nearly die because I'm fighting like all of these crazy big monsters. But I'd end up like fighting through them using different abilities, synergizing, and getting 2 specific limit breaks that help me beat the monster that I'm fighting in that situation. And it works. And I get some really good Nanaki lines, so it ends up being worth it in the end.
Yeah, no, it's basically like what it comes down to in the end, folks, is elemental weaknesses, having more or less most of the time, I know it's not every case, but again, having the story revolve around the antagonist doing something to the protagonist in their personal life or something. However you want to really phrase that, but basically the antagonist has to have the backstory that connects with the protagonist. That's how most RPGs are in some way. And then obviously you have your side quest, you have deeper exploration, you have more mechanics to do when you're playing an RPG, because 9 times out of 10 you do have to think in whatever instance you are in, that whether it's a turn-based game, non-turn-based game, you have to just simply understand the situation, do the right thing, combos, whatever the case may be, heal, spells, whatever, elemental weaknesses especially. That's all that right there is what makes an RPG an RPG
That's a
when
good
you're playing.
recap. That is a really good recap on who and what. And the tough one, I think, for us, which is probably something we should have gone over before, is when. When do RPGs normally take place? Which, that can go for many different eras. Like in World of Warcraft's era, it seems mostly medieval because you got knights, you got kings, queens, kingdoms, war chiefs. You got a lot of medieval style things, a lot of shamans. There's a lot to go over in World of Warcraft on when
So
that takes place. But then you got your post-apocalyptic RPGs like
Horizon, Nier
which
Automata.
you have some futuristic stuff. Yeah, the automata that she has on her ear. You got like these robots that you're fighting around. That is very post-apocalyptic, and you also got what else is there for? They usually just seem to go between medieval or post-apocalyptic. But there are
There's
non-RPG games that are also post-apocalyptic or medieval, like
Borderlands is post-apocalyptic, which to me
that
that kind of
one.
falls close. That falls close in between
I
RPG
was
and
gonna say
non-RPG.
that one is actually fairly close because there is still a skill tree to make your character stronger. There's
You still
classes you
level
can
up,
choose from. There's
classes
leveling.
level
It's
up,
basically a shooter's RPG. Like,
essentially. But yeah, there's a lot. Hold on, I remember. What did you initially? Okay, you were talking about. Okay, I remember now. Final Fantasy's origin, like Final Fantasy 1, 2. I don't remember where 6 took place, but I'm gonna assume 6. The Nintendo era was very medieval fantasy like. Then 7 is when it changed. It went to sci-fi-esque fantasy, except that one you really got to like travel around the world, which was basically
I think
Earth, if you will.
I want to say that FF7 is one of the few sci-fi RPGs that's actually really interesting and good. I don't really think Final Fantasy ever explored sci-fi after that, that I can
um,
think of.
I'm trying to think. 8. I don't remember enough about 8. I literally
I
only beat 8
know.
one time.
I think it's either FF9 or FF not 10, 11. Cause would be well not 8. Um well there's also one of the Final Fantasies that explore in the steampunk era.
Yeah,
I
no,
can't
7
remember which one
was
was
7
that.
was also steampunk, because Midgar basically explains that is steampunk.
I mean in a certain sense, yeah. I was
Like it wasn't
thinking
full blown steampunk, but it had partial steampunk to it.
more steampunk than FF7 cuz yeah, FF7 does
'Cause
go very technology based, but there is one that goes
I,
in a
I,
more
s-
steampunk direction than
I
that.
kind of wish I could remember 8, but like see 8 is kind of on my lower tier Final Fantasy because the mechanics in that game just got on my nerves very easily. But 9 was medieval, 10 was island themed actually, very island themed. But it was very pretty. I loved the world of Spira. I loved
10
the story
is
that was told there.
definitely something. Because 10 does also have a city where you play Blitzball, so I can't really tell which line that would fall under. FF11 was an MMO and I don't remember anything
Yeah,
about.
FF12 was medieval. 13 might be the
FF13.
steampunk one. I'm not sure because I haven't played that in a long time
Oh,
because
wait,
they haven't ported
13
it to
was
modern.
lightning. Yeah, FF12
Yeah,
is, yeah, Zodiac Age, yeah, that's medieval. 13 is a
13.
bit
I don't remember much.
difficult. I think it's more in the, not Roman, Greece? I want to say Greece kind of
It,
area. It
it very
sounds
well.
like, from what you've described, it sounds more God focused than
It,
any other FF out there. FF14 it's an MMORPG, so it really just I think it's medieval most. I think it's all medieval actually.
14 is medieval or starts off medieval, but right now in the current state is very island themed.
I
We've also
have
gone to
no
space.
idea.
Oh yeah, FF8 also has a space thing to it. I forgot because like you crash into the moon to save for Noah or something like that.
Actually,
I don't.
World of
Okay.
Warcraft has space titans, so for it being medieval themed, it has a lot going on. But it's also got a lot of demons, so I think it still falls under medieval. Cause like it still includes space, and in its current state, it's going over a void
Uh,
antagonist. So I don't know.
uh, Google is definitely not telling me where FF13 would take place at, but I know you travel between two planes because you have Pulse and you have the other one. Again, I've only played through those games like a couple of times because they were on the PS3 360 era. And I mostly again, I've played probably all of my Final Fantasies more or less on a PlayStation.
I don't
So,
know
yeah,
where I would put FF15. They have
15's
cars.
medieval.
I wanted to also say post-apocalyptic. Maybe it's like a
That one's
mix of like medieval and current era. It's like modern medieval because they still have
pretty.
vehicles that drive around and they use swords, guns, what have you. They are very much a bit sort of probably all over the place. Now
15.
FF16 is very
That is
much
definitely.
medieval.
Yeah, that is very much medieval. Again, I need to play through all the Final Fantasies again. It just takes forever for me to want to get around to them. Because 1 through 6 definitely medieval. Seven's kind of high. It's sci-fi mixed with like high fantasy, which I don't really know why it's called that, but it is.
That
It's a very
one
weird name.
that one could also be kind of similar to like what we qualify as FF15 because it also has cars, but it
Which
kind
is
of
what high
also
fantasy is.
feels it's like futuristic medieval, like very futuristic medieval because Midgar is obviously very futuristic and they got a lot of technology within Midgar
Yeah.
and
And
outside of
then
Midgar because of Shinra. But they also got
Junon is
some
also
like
like very
medieval
technology based.
style towns and areas
Yeah,
like
Calm is definitely kind of medieval-esque.
yeah, Nibelheim also feels like kind of a medieval village in a weird way. Even though they got Shinra like a Shinra
Yeah.
mansion outside
Yeah.
of Nibelheim, but
And obviously Cosmo Canyon.
Cosmo Canyon is definitely very medieval-esque. It's
And
a
then
very lovely. For it being in a desert, it is very lovely. Deserts are usually boring as hell, and they still are
yeah,
outside of Cosmo Canyon. If you're just like
yeah,
around the desert area, it's boring as fuck. But when you're in Cosmo Canyon, less boring.
I definitely agree. Then of course, like, well, Kingdom Hearts, it's a weird thing, but because obviously you're going through Disney
Kingdom
World, but in
Hearts,
some cases,
Kingdom Hearts, it
you do
really
have medieval.
Kingdom Hearts, it really does vary in what world you're in. Because you can go in different worlds that could really change the theme. It really depends on the Disney movie you're in. So if you're in the Lilo and Stitch world, you're not in medieval, you're in a modern era, because you're in Hawaii,
Yeah.
essentially, or you're in space, all things depending.
Yeah, which in Birth by
And
Sleep you're in space, but like with Kingdom Hearts, usually the final world it's usually a castle, so it's kind of medieval-esque.
yeah, I mean, like, the main world of Kingdom Hearts, the main worlds, like, the main OC worlds, original worlds that are not Disney themed, that are based around Sora and, like, a lot of other characters that are from Kingdom Hearts itself and not Disney, it's usually medieval themed. But when
Like
it comes to
swords
going around to different Disney worlds, it's obviously like Disney themed
all
based
over the
on what
place.
the Disney's movies theme was in its
Yeah,
time. Like in the Monsters Inc. world, it's obviously like modern themed, because they're using a city, like a whole not cornucopia.
I don't even know, but Kingdom Hearts
Word.
is kind of like all over the place because you're traversing through so many different things.
Yes, it's
Heck,
basically a city of monsters. It's population of monsters instead of humans. But
yeah,
the
you're
monsters can travel to humans' worlds to scare children or make them laugh in the current era.
you're basically like Monsters Inc. In some way, you're like in a metropolitan area.
That's probably the words I was looking for, but I couldn't think of the
I
words.
I think that's exactly what it is because you're essentially in like a bigger city, but there's also monsters. It's very Metro-esque. I know it's Metro something essentially, but that's basically the only
It's
word that makes sense to me.
Words are difficult. But yeah, it really depends on the RPG. I mean, an interesting thing as well in World of Warcraft is it also has, well, actually, one of the most interesting, I think one of the most interesting in the expansions is Shadowlands, which I think a lot of people brushed over as the lore within Shadowlands. Because I'm actually learning that Shadowlands was not as well received as I had initially thought because of the lore. And I know most of it is because of the Maw, where when you first go to the Maw, you cannot mount until you go to like the Dominion storyline. You end up in the second half of the Maw, you can mount. And that annoyed a lot of people, which I think is very unfortunate. Because in each individual island that you can visit outside of the Maw, there is a lot of story and lore to be had about different characters. Like in Ardenweald, you can learn more about Ysera and actually here recently bring her back to life. And in Maldraxxus, there is a new Ashbringer that they created for an ex-Ashbringer wielder of the olden times that looks really cool. And even that character had some interesting development. I feel like Shadowlands is very underrated in terms of really cool World of Warcraft expansions.
Shadowlands is basically the equivalent to FF14 Stormblend. Everyone's like, it wasn't that great, and I'm just like, you all kind of brushed over that just because Shadowbringers is literally the best expansion.
Yeah, no. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people still believe that, like, I'm sure a lot of people still believe Wrath of the Lich King was still the best expansion. But I know there's also going to be people who think, like, it's Legion, Burning Crusade. There's people out there who think that just vanilla World of Warcraft is better. There's something for everyone in World of Warcraft. And
Like,
if Shadowlands is your favorite, I hear you, loud and clear. That is a great expansion, and I will not be told otherwise. There is still some really cool shit you can see and get in Shadowlands. I loved the expansion, and I still think the mod's actually pretty cool in a certain kind of way. Annoying, but cool in a certain way.
And just like, again, I mean, bring up World of Warcraft is my equivalent of Final Fantasy. There's always going to be an FF for everyone out there. Obviously, 7 is the most popular one. But again, you know, you have your people who love 12, you have people who love 13, 15, 16. so on and so forth. I mean, I love the franchise as a whole. There's just so many good characters in my opinion in the world. Most of them are really good. There's a few I'm not a fan of. Looking at you, 8. Anyways, sorry, 8 fans, don't kill me. Um,
I mean, honestly,
2, 2 is also trash. Sorry.
that also goes for World of Warcraft. There are expansions that are great, and then there's expansions that are bad. Looking at you, Warlords of Draenor. Although I still really
And
liked the garrison idea, but I really did not like the idea of the garrison missions that you had to do. You had to get followers, put them in a, put them on missions, and you had to wait hours for them to come back from their missions, basically giving it mobile app kind of
I just
mechanics, which I was not a big fan of.
I
And
just realized
they
8
did bring
is
that back in Legion, but it wasn't as prominent as it was in Warlords of Draenor.
I just realized 8 is kind of like military-esque themed because if you think about it, you're in a group and you gain ranks that, like, what is it? Like CD is like the title, I think. I could be wrong. That's like equivalent to sergeant and stuff, and you eventually you gain ranks by doing a bunch of questing and whatever. So I think it's kind of like a military-esque themed game in some way.
Yeah, I could see that. That does track. Even though FF8 starts off in a school, I do remember a lot of the dialogue was very military themed.
Yeah, it is kind of
I need to
military
get
themed.
back into FF8 because like that game, it
I
seems
should.
really good. I'm just not very big on turn-based games, so that's on me.
See that's how I know I've played too many turn-based games is the reason why I don't like 8 and that's because like if it got remade with 7 remakes combat I would probably love it more, but I don't like its turn-based mechanics at all. It annoys me too much. I get very irritated playing 8.
See,
But I do need
that's
to play
kind
8
of
again.
my problem with FF7 or FF10's mechanics. I don't hate it, but like it's also kind of difficult going through that spear tree that they brought back in
The spear
remake
grid.
or rebirth.
Yeah. I personally like the spear grid, but that's because I grew up playing FF10. I thought it was cool that they kept basically reinventing their wheel and trying to make the gameplay better from prior games like 9, 7, 8, 1 through 6, but 1 through 6 didn't really vary that much. It wasn't until 7 where we got the in-depth turn-based mechanics.
Oh yeah, I mean 7 has like the best mechanic of all though.
Well,
The
yeah, the materia system
system.
is god tier. And 8 makes me mad because I hate the junction system. I mean, I don't hate the characters. Like, the characters in the world are alright, but like, they're not enough for me to really say I love 8 because, dear god, that system kills me.
I could easily love a game because of characters. I would not
Usually,
hate a game if it has good characters. But I can also say the same like if a game has good mechanics but bad characters. For example, Forspoken. That
oh
game
god.
has really bad protagonist character and not so great of an antagonist character because the antagonist has been on your wrist for the entire game. But good god, the magic system and like the gameplay as a whole was so fucking awesome.
See, for me, like, when it comes to a game, not even just RPGs in general, what makes me love a game is usually it goes story and characters, then gameplay, and then the world and level design. And sometimes I do need the gameplay to be a little bit better for me if I'm going to fully enjoy the game. I can deal with some crappy gameplay, but like 8 for me was just so frustrating because it's like, oh, you have to do this junction, oh, you have to do this junction, or don't level up too far, otherwise you're basically gonna get one shot. It's like, why is this the most reverse thing ever? I can't handle this. This is actually bothering me.
You know, I don't really know how that system sounds so backwards, but I've never really played through 8 all the way through, so I don't know. Maybe they were trying to make 8 for people who can like just go straight forward into the story rather than people who will just like grind the crap out of everything first and then continue the story. I think they were trying to focus towards the new players that need to be able to straightforward through the story, just like continue through the story and do nothing else. Maybe side quests here and there if there are any. I think there should be an RPG.
There's a lot of side quests in that game, but you can even get Squall's strongest weapon like very early on in the game. That's kind of how. And it's just broken. 8 is just broken. Like I really do think it would benefit the most from a remake.
I think so too.
And then 9 system. I don't even know how to explain 9s, but it's definitely a little different.
There are just so many different RPG systems that just work. Like
they do, and then
me and Hero are focusing more on FF7 or FF and World of Warcraft. That's just what we know from RPGs versus what
and obviously
you guys probably know. But I can't really think of any other RPGs that hit me the same as like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, specifically 7, because I didn't play very many RPGs growing up anyway.
I'll bring up some more RPG systems. I'll bring up. I'm trying to think of some we'll bring up some turn-based ones real quickly. So
we could also bring up Tales of.
Yeah, Yakuza, Tales of, Persona, Fire Emblem. Those are all also very different RPG systems. Like Yakuza, well, I guess Like a Dragon to be more proper. It's kind of. In some way, it's kind of straightforward. Like, you still have abilities. You still have, you can get better gear, better armor. And mind you, the series started off as a beat-em-up, basically. So, to be an RPG, it is kind of... It's just very... It's a bit peculiar. Like, I don't find it very fancy, so to speak. Like, maybe in Infinite Wealth it's a little more fancier because, like, you can hit certain buttons and your attack will be stronger. And I do think it's good. I don't think it's great, but it is solid enough to where I can say I enjoy it enough. And I do really like the characters in the world in that series. Anyways, what were you gonna say, Soldier?
Something just now hit me, because there is another MMO that I got really into back in the day while I was exploring MMOs. Because I remember post getting into World of Warcraft, I started ending up in a rabbit hole of other MMO RPGs, or just MMOs in general. So I found myself on a racing MMO, which was Need for Speed World, and there was another one, but it also shut down. The downside with the other one was cosmetics were completely temporary for some reason, unless you paid for them with real money, which I was not about to do, mostly because at the time I didn't have the money. But
that's fair.
There was also the one MMO that I'm thinking of that might be an RPG. The one I'm thinking of is Wizard 101, which I'm sure a lot of you will remember. There were a lot of commercials for it. I started playing it before the commercials, hilariously enough.
I remember seeing all those commercials. I wanted to play it myself because me being a Harry Potter fan, yeah.
That's why I got into it. I was like, Wizard 101? Magic? Ooh. This sounds awesome. And it's just card game fighting. But this is where I'm confused with Wizard 101. Is it an RPG? Because it's a deck builder game, in fact. Because what makes me think it might not be an RPG is because you're still using your cards, you're using your deck. You're basically playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But with action. You're playing the anime of Yu-Gi-Oh! But there's also different wands and robes and just like generally gear you can get that makes it different from any other like regular deck builder game, or that kind of makes it feel RPG-esque, because you can also have pets that will help you in the heat of battle. They can cast spells for you that can help you And so can your
I,
wand. You can have a wand that could cast something for you as well, which is pretty damn awesome. And it has buffs and debuffs for spells. So it is definitely
uh,
very interesting to
it's
think that you
borderline
could
RPG for sure.
consider it a deck builder RPG. It is an MMO
Definitely up
deck
there.
builder RPG for sure. Has to be.
It's up there. And obviously, like, hold on, I forgot where we were at. Okay, yeah, more of the RPGs take place. Like, okay, for like a non-RPG example, and again, some people may consider an RPG. I can see the argument for it, but Ghost of Tsushima. Love the game. Love the fact that it takes place in feudal Japan. No, it is not an RPG. As to why is, well, yeah, you still have a skill tree. You can level up. But that's pretty much as far as that goes, because you're literally just killing other humans. Here, there's no fantasy creatures. There's not really an elemental weakness. I mean, sure, you can blow up barrels, but again, you can do that in horror games. You can do that in
You can
any
blow
game that
up
has
a
explosive.
barrel anywhere.
Yeah,
Just
you
about
can.
every game has a barrel. I think
Like,
Rebirth has barrels. Remake
like
has
there's
barrels.
literally there's no elemental weaknesses. It's just it's literally an action adventure, and most of the time I'm going around using my sword anyways. Like I'm not. I'm barely changing armor, really, realistically. Like, it's close to an RPG, but it's definitely not exactly an RPG.
See,
It's definitely missing some elements. You're not even crafting in that game, as far as I can remember.
See, I don't remember much about Ghost of Tsushima, mostly because I meant to play through more of it. That game is stuck in my backlog currently, because I do eventually want to get back into it. I might have it on PS Plus, or I hijacked it from your PS Plus. I cannot remember, but that's something for me to look up for when I fix my 5. That is for sure. But that is definitely something to think about when it comes to what makes an RPG, because yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is very different. Where, in terms of where it takes place in like an area in Japan. It's a very Japanese themed, but it's very much more real world than an actual RPG. There's no unique creatures. There's nothing really unique in there. It has like our real world weapons, katanas, bows. I don't remember if they're crossbows. Has horses. It's
It has horses.
kind of old era because it doesn't have cars or anything. It's very old era because it's still
that's what
back
I said,
to
feudal
Horse era.
Japan.
Yeah,
It's
feudal.
very much feudal Japan. It's about how, realistically, it's just about how the Japanese lived back then, and how at one point it was more of a dictatorship than what we have in today's world when it comes to Japan.
Which, it actually does sound really cool, and I was very much into it. I don't know why I suddenly stopped playing it, but for some reason I had something else I wanted to get into, and another game I wanted to get into. I don't remember what game distracted me from Ghost of Tsushima. Don't ask me. It doesn't matter anymore. But I will get into it. I may have to do that when I clean my PS5. I may have to get into Ghost.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not an RPG. Again, it is one of my favorite games. I do love Ghost of Tsushima, but if someone's telling you it's not an RPG, don't believe them, because there's not enough mechanics in the game to really say it's an RPG. Like, you do get, when you build it up enough, I forgot what it's technically called, but for its namesake, you have like a ghost mode where you can absolutely auto-kill your enemies, which I find really cool. I do like that part of it, but even then, it's still not an RPG. You just basically have that game's devil trigger, essentially.
Pretty much. I mean, I don't know what that game's double trigger is. I didn't make it that far. I didn't mean to do that.
It's basically just, to me, I called it ghost mode. I don't really remember it very well because I don't know. I know the story of Ghost of Tsushima. I don't remember the mechanics.
Another
all the way
good
through.
one to bring up is Assassin's Creed. Any Assassin's Creed. For me, because I played that
Valhalla.
the most, I played a lot of Brotherhood. I played the absolute hell out of it. That one is tough to think about because it does have similar style UIs to an RPG. You have the health bar, you got your weapon wheel, you got a weapon shop, clothing shop. Although it's not really much for upgrading, you don't craft upgrades. However, I do think there is a skill tree in some area.
I think there is some skill trees.
I know in
actually I know there's
I know
Valhalla definitely has one.
I know at least in Brotherhood, the Animus did have some kind of skill tree for you to better Ezio as an assassin. But you cannot better Desmond as an assassin. He just gets better by himself as you progress through the story and as he learns more about what Ezio went through to be the best of assassins in his era of Rome. But it does make me wonder, like, where it was, because I have not played Brotherhood in so long, but I still love that game so much.
Well, it was definitely in Italy. I just don't know which part of Italy.
Oh, it was in Rome. It was Rome, Italy. That's Brotherhood, at least. I know Assassin's Creed 2 took place in more than just Rome. In fact, I don't think it took place in Rome. I think it was around Rome. But I do remember in Brotherhood you start off in what becomes Ezio's hideout.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember playing through Brotherhood. And a lot of people also say that is the best story one. I can't say I disagree. I just think main protagonist, I preferred Connor more, which that one takes place during the American Revolution.
I think for me personally, I liked Ezio's story the most. Like, yeah, obviously he's like some kind of like total badass hot hunk guy, like going for all the ladies. That's like a typical guy behavior, but he's also, well, back then guy behavior. But he's also just like there for the heads of the
Knights of the Templar.
Templars, yes. Which is where Lucy came in, because in Desmond's story, apparently Lucy was the spy, which I found interesting, and you go back to Ezio's story, where...
It was very, very interesting.
Yeah, that story definitely got very interesting. Ezio's story was more interesting than Desmond's, though. Desmond's was kind of all over. I still prefer Ezio.
Desmond, literally, his story just ends with him dying in 3 anyways. Spoilers!
Yeah, literally, and then you're just stuck in the Animus for the rest of the game, playing through Ezio's story. And what's cool about Ezio is he just starts laying back. He defeated the Templars, he's doing his own thing, and he's gonna leave the future Templars to the next generation. Because he has laid back, hidden out like Kratos in the beginning of God of War, where he's hidden out in the cabin up until everything starts coming at him.
Yep, and Assassin's Creed essentially, from the first one to, I don't know which one came out first, I don't know if it was Origins or Odyssey, but basically the one before Valhalla was basically a sandbox RPG, and what that means is you still have everything an RPG needs, but you're basically only going from point A to point B, and the story just plays itself out, whereas in Valhalla, you do actually get a lot of exploration and freedom, and you get your vehicle, you get your boat, so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure you even have side quests in the game. Like, it's more open compared to the prior games.
Except, like, I mean, yeah, it's definitely way more open in the prior games, because even Brotherhood, it is very open. You can explore Rome to your heart's content, but there are restricted areas you cannot go, because Ezio did not go to those areas. If you end up going out of bounds, it'll be like, Ezio didn't go there. Or if you end up killing a lot of NPCs, it'll be like, Ezio didn't kill a lot of innocents. Whatever the word they used was.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed is definitely, it's more or less an RPG series, but people can fight about that later.
It really depends on the Assassin's Creed. There are certain ones that don't feel RPG-esque like Brotherhood or Valhalla. Those two are like the
Valhalla,
main RPG-esque ones that I can think of, because they're upgrading weapons, you're upgrading your, like, what weapons you can carry, you're upgrading what utilities you can carry, you're getting different utilities, you're upgrading how you use the utilities and whatnot.
and Black Flag would also fall under the RPG category because you can do a lot of upgrading and whatnot as well, and that also has some decent exploration.
And I do think there is crafting in Brotherhood that I can think of somewhere. I know there's also a lot of collecting that I still have yet to finish in the Ezio collection. I think I have to start that over. I think I started that on 4.
But I want to bring up Horizon specifically because that's also been a Twitter discourse on whether it's not an RPG, and it definitely is. I don't know where you guys think it's not or how it's not, but let me just tell you why it literally is. Sure, you're not customizing the main character, but actually technically you can. You do get different outfits in Horizon. So technically yes, you can. You do get different weapons, you get different bows, you get a different trip caster, you even get a better, I don't technically know what they call it, the spears / staffs in that game. They had a different name for it compared to what is literally known as a spear in IRL. But you can get a stronger version of that. You can craft, you can sell, you can upgrade, you have a skill tree, you can level up. Certain enemies do have elemental weaknesses. There's some that are weak to ice, there's some weak to fire. I'm pretty sure you get acid arrows as well, so you can poison them. So like in some way, yeah, you may not have spells per se, but your spells, quote unquote, go to the arrows. So like, anyone's telling you it's not an RPG, I promise you it's definitely an RPG. It has every last thing you need it to be for an RPG.
Yeah,
it may not be your standard RPG, but it's still an RPG.
It is definitely up there in, like, is this an RPG? It is. Obviously, it's very open world. There's a lot to explore, a lot to see, a lot to do, as is with any open world. But there's also a lot of elements to it. Now, Horizon is like the regular version of Biomutant in a strange way. Biomutant is also a very underrated RPG in a sense where you're playing as in a post-apocalyptic world. You're exploring the world, upgrading different skill trees, getting like either stronger, wiser, what have you, normal RPG things. And you're also getting different abilities to help you take down these corrupt beasts, take down the world eaters. There is a lot to that game as well that could qualify it as an RPG. There's different outfits and gear, there's crafting, you craft different weapons to make yourself stronger against each enemy. It's really a matter of perspective of what the developers do to include RPG elements. There's a lot of different open world games that are and aren't RPGs. MMOs are commonly RPGs, but single player games are not always going to be RPGs.
And they're not going to, but like Horizon has a lot to it, to the point where it's like, how can you look at it and say, oh, it's not an RPG? Is it because you're not creating Aloy? Because again, there's so many RPGs that you're not creating your character. Is it because there's not enough magic? Well, again, the way the setting and the theme of the world is, it's kind of it's post-apocalyptic, but it's also kind of like you're in an Indian tribe, except Aloy's an outcast. Like you're not gonna get spells in a setting where it doesn't make sense to get spells at.
Yeah, no. And it's still based off of the real world in a sense because, well, there's obviously a backstory to the world and how it used to be before they invented this machine that self-destructs itself if the world is not perfect. Hades, I believe it was called.
Yeah, it was Hades. I think you destroyed that in Forbidden West, but again, it's hard for me to remember certain story aspects
You
to certain
also
games.
you also hack into it to shut it down in Zero Dawn, but clearly it came
Yeah,
back for Forbidden West.
yeah, it definitely comes back for Forbidden West for sure, because I remember Hades was mentioned a lot. And obviously, again, I'm playing through Zero Dawn to refresh my memory, because that's how I remembered Aloy as an outcast. She doesn't know who her mother or father are, essentially. Mostly her mother. I think her father might be the dude that taught her how to shoot a bow, but I don't remember.
I remember that dude, but I also think her mother. Well, I'm trying to remember the backstory, cause wasn't her
Well,
mother the one of the chicks from the past? And that's
it
what
was. Her
made
mother
her an
was
outcast.
Elizabeth.
Because she was born from the demon machine that a lot of people are afraid of, and that's why she was outcasted so hard. She
Yeah,
didn't
and she
really
did.
have a mother or father. She was just born into existence, and a lot of people started calling her a witch or a demon. And that's
Yeah,
why they started
yeah,
hate. That's why a lot of people hated her, and she proved them wrong in saving the world
and she
and
saved the
being
entire world.
the hero instead of what they thought she was, a demon, an evil entity, whatever they called her, which was a lot of things.
It was a lot of things. That's why I'm playing Horizon again, because I love the game, but it's hard to remember stories sometimes.
It is, it
Like
very
Final,
much is. I'm surprised I remembered that much.
yeah,
Like,
no, there was a
legitimately.
lot to it. Like I've always remembered that she was an outcast. She was led to believe her mother abandoned her, which she never really got to know her mother until you get further in Zero Dawn, where you find the truth.
Yep, and she ends up finding a cave. Ah, Gio, cut that out. Ah, Gio, please.
Explosions!
Ignore that. Blow it up. Blow me up. Maybe it might wake me up. Anyway,
Oh goodness.
okay, so
But
I'm trying to remember the beginning of Horizon, where you're starting off as baby Aloy. She's not really a
yeah,
baby.
so
She's a child.
so
You're starting off as child
you're
Aloy.
playing as
You
toddler
start
Aloy.
exploring a cave. You're
Yeah,
going
you
through
do
this
explore
cave, and you
cave. You get the
find,
focus.
yeah, this tool
The f-
that she puts on her ear, and she can suddenly see
which is called the focus.
technology.
Yeah, she can see technology, she can see weaknesses, she can hear audio tracks because she's always had a strong sense of smell and good hearing.
Speaking of which, I really need to play Forbidden West so I can have that character Gio, blow me up. What's his
Geo
name?
explosions.
What was his name? Started with an S.
Oh crap, wait, I forgot his name. But he's voiced by the same guy who did Zavala, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, they have a very similar voice, which rest in peace, voice actor Isabella, and this guy.
I forgot your name already. No,
Uh,
I'm looking it up now. I need to know. Geo, cut this out.
Gio, just blow us up to the point where we figure out the guy's name. I forgot his name.
Okay, so the voice actor's name is Lance Reddick. So who did he voice in Horizon? Yeah, let me type in Lance Reddick. Did you voice in? I know it starts with an S. I know what you're talking about. Where is it? Where is it? Silence. Silence. That's his name.
Silence, yes. Yes, thank you.
Geo, blow up
Silence.
everything before the.
I still don't remember. I also don't remember much about the Silence character, but I know he starts contacting Aloy through her focus, because he
Yep.
also has a focus. There was some like really fucked up shit with that focus, by the way, cause like,
Yeah.
holy
yeah.
hell.
Oh yeah, Olin is the first character you meet with another focus in Zero Dawn. He was kind of an ass.
He was a dick.
I didn't-
Yeah, I did not like him, cause I
He was
remember
definitely.
him.
But to pair up Horizon I'm gonna do this
Yo,
comparison,
blow me up.
this RPG comparison. I'm gonna do Horizon and Elden Ring because a lot of people again like to look at like Elden Ring, the old style Final Fantasy, mostly one I want to say because that's the one that did the most, and to compare the two because in Horizon obviously you already play a character you make or you don't make her. You play as Aloy. She is the character. She has a story set out for her. Same with Elden Ring. Same with Elden Ring in a case that you do set out on a story that's made for you. But in Elden Ring's case, you do get to create your character. You get a class. You get everything that a lot of people want to consider an RPG, which it is obviously an RPG. But the difference is one is very action oriented, where you still have the skill tree, you still have crafting, so on and so forth. But in like Elden Ring, it is still action, but you have to level up your stats, you have to get better armor, so on and so forth. And essentially, it's the same thing. It's just two very different styles of action RPGs.
The only
That's really what it comes down
downside
to.
The only downside is, like in Elden Ring's case, you also have to be very good at those kinds of games because, like, that game is a lot of dodging around, avoiding attacks, and actually being able to, like, squeak in a few attacks here and there. Because,
Literally, you have
like,
to
you're
pace
not
yourself in
gonna
order.
be able to fight very well in Elden Ring, especially against bosses if you cannot also avoid attacks. If you cannot
Yeah,
also avoid attacks while squeaking in a few attacks, you're not gonna have a good time, which I've learned
no,
the hard way. I spent hours trying to destroy this same dragon who just sits there weakening my attacks because he's roaring at me. He is the easiest boss, but he takes so freaking much because he keeps weakening me, and I think I accidentally have to fight him again because I exited the game without saving at one point by accident.
eh,
It's
yeah, I
very
got
easy
very
to do, by the way.
I got very annoyed with Elden Ring. Anyone who knows me, I don't like Souls-like games. I don't mind challenging myself on games. I've beaten FF7 Remake on hard mode. I've beaten all the Kingdom Hearts games on the hardest difficulty. So I have no
Critical.
problem I don't mind challenging myself. But when I'm getting one shot or even two shot every time I'm trying to kill something, specifically a boss, it's just annoying. It's like, and I don't want to hear the good mechanic either, because it's like, it don't matter how good you are, you're getting your freaking ass stomped in every time almost.
Oh yeah, believe me, even the pros get their asses stomped in every time by Elden Ring. I think that's what they love about it. They love the challenge. They love the adrenaline of fighting something very difficult. But
And if
for
I
my
want to do
case,
that,
I don't like the idea of having to lose my shit in the process of
yeah, see,
dying.
that,
Because you gotta
that's
go
my
back
other,
for it. If you lose it, it's gone for good. If you die again
that,
after you lost it, it's gone for good and you're not getting it back.
yeah, that was my main problem with Elden. I think it goes for all Souls games, but Elden Ring specifically, it's like I'm tired of having to go back, get my stuff, and sometimes you don't even remember where it was at. Like you could die anywhere, and if you don't remember, it's just gone, basically. And it's like this is annoying. I don't like this. I'm not
That
having a good
reminds
time.
me.
I'm not really enjoying myself.
I remember on Elden Ring, I think this was while I still had it hijacked from Destined Vampire. I was fighting this boss naked because I wanted to be able to dodge his attacks. I wanted to be able to avoid everything he
I
threw
was
at me.
We were in Discord VC when you were doing that. I was just
I
like, why
got
are you naked?
completely naked against this boss because I had a two-handed sword and my armor was too heavy, but my two-handed sword was very powerful. I needed to hit strong blows. I was able to use the sword normally because I had the stats that allowed me to use the sword, but I did not have the stats to be able to use the sword with the armor, so I was naked so I could dodge more efficiently. Because if you have heavy armor on with a heavy sword, you are dodging very slowly. You got a very slow, easy to hit dodge. So I was going for a more efficient manner, and it was working. I had the boss down to low health. But then at some point I was like, I'll get back to this another time. I got other things I need to do. And I have
Yeah,
not been
and
able to get back to Ascent because I sure should have not paying for Elden Ring. PS Plus, you want the Elden Ring up there so I can get back to that? Please?
yeah, no, I will never pay for Elden Ring. But if I want to challenge myself, Rebirth hard mode is very challenging. Again, I think when it comes to JRPGs, which ironically Elden Ring is one, but Remake and Rebirth are like the standard of how if you really want to challenge yourself in a way that's not gonna overly frustrate you like Elden Ring, play hard mode.
Oh yeah.
It's
And if
worth the
hard mode
challenge.
becomes too easy, you have a dynamic difficulty which will make it even harder if you're already good at hard mode.
Yeah, for me, playing on dynamic difficulty is literally harder than hard mode because it adjusts to your skill level, and God, I can definitely tell I must have a high skill level.
Yeah, I legitimately thought dynamic difficulty would be like, oh, okay, it's just like between easy and hard. Okay, this should be easy. Holy fuck, these guys are tough. What the hell? Alright, turning down difficulty. Alright, there we go, got him.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tough. I mean, I adjusted to dynamic really well. I did. I'm actually kind of struggling with hard mode because it's like I'm definitely missing some core materia for sure. Probably some even other things that I'm not thinking about when it comes to hard mode because it's like there's a lot and it's like I don't know where to get some of these things at whatsoever. And that's why I'm also kind of just waiting to get a PS5 Pro so I can actually do hard mode
It's difficult.
in a way
it's
that's a
very
little more comfortable for me.
Hard mode is definitely very difficult, and it's still very cool to see how far Final Fantasy has come, especially the 7 era of Final Fantasy. It has come a very long way. But
Oh, it really
I
has.
think we've gone over the who, what, when, where's, and why's of RPGs. So,
Very much so.
how RPGs are represented is it's very simple. They all usually follow specific mechanics and some mainline mechanics you can look for when playing a game to differentiate it from an RPG is usually you got your health bar, and depending on the class, you got your mana bar, and you've got obviously a skill tree or whatever to make your character stronger. You've got a level up system. You've got different weapons and armor, and you've got different different merchants where you can buy supplies, weapons, and armor from. And then you've got your crafting system where you can create things to make yourself better, or you can create utilities to make your life easier, like crafting potions, mana potions, what have you. It's basically, that's basically usually the crafting system. Is not very often it includes weapons and armor, actually.
And to go on with that, or to go along with that, depending on the genre of RPG, I'm kind of thinking Final Fantasy here, but Hogwarts Legacy has it because again, that game does need to be mentioned. It is also an incredible RPG. Most RPGs you have like, again, a traversal system. That's what I was wanting to say.
Yes.
Like Final Fantasy VII, you have chocobos, you have the red buggy you get from Dio. He has nice tits, by the way, didn't you know?
He does.
Yes. You have the buggy.
In World of Warcraft,
there's
you have like
another
different
one.
mounts you can unlock. In FF15, you have a car you can drive.
Yeah, the regalia.
In there's so many
That's the
different
other thing.
mobility.
Oh yeah, there we go. The tiny Bronco you get from Sid, and then of course every Final Fantasy most of the time has an airship.
Yes, it's usually FF7 that has the airship, and then in
1 through 9 have an airship.
I'm gonna say Forspoken is in some way of an RPG because you get different magic abilities and you can upgrade those magic abilities with a skill tree. And um
It's definitely an RPG.
in Forspoken there is it's not a mountain mobility system, but she has a kind of like sprinting ability she can do for a really long time that gets her from point A to point B pretty quickly. All depending on how far away it is, unfortunately. In some cases, it does become kind of a sprinting simulator, I'm not gonna lie.
It does. And of course, with Hogwarts Legacy, you do get a hippogriff and you do get the broom. I do not remember if there was other mounts in that game. I
There
just know
was
those two
the
specifically.
kind of like four-legged Cthulhu style mount that you can get. I can't remember the name of him, but he has like a tentacle face.
But again, it's
you
essentially
can
all
also
saying
change out the hippogriff for the thing that only people who have experienced death can see. I forgot what those things are called.
oh yeah, that. I don't remember what it's called, but a lot of this is to say that most RPGs, they have a traversal mechanic that other games usually don't. Like even like Mario, the 3D Mario games, they kind of have a traversal when you're going around the level, but it's like not anything that you can use for every level or every area you're in compared to your, you know, actual RPGs.
Yeah,
Because like
much.
even in Zelda, you get Epona most of the time. Which is why it's hard to say Zelda's not an RPG, but of course it's obviously not because you're not really crafting anything. I mean, maybe Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But like before those two games, it really was not a full-blown RPG. It crossed that line, but it was definitely not, it wasn't there.
It was around there, but it was not quite there.
Like there was no crafting, no skill tree, none of that.
As a conclusion, there are different points, different mechanics that make an RPG, but there are also mechanics that make a game seem like an RPG, but it's really not an RPG.
Which those are usually action adventure games. There's a big difference. Again, there's just a lot of RPGs out there. Like I didn't even really go into Persona or anything like that, but there's a lot of different turn-based and a lot of
You mentioned Persona earlier, but I don't remember what you were talking about when you said Persona earlier.
I was just talking about like a bunch of turn-based mechanic games. I basically mentioned Persona, Yakuza, old-style Final Fantasy, and even Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which I did not mention, is also turn-based, but that's even different from those games. So like,
oh, Expedition was turn-based? I thought that was gonna be action.
It's turn-based, but it's like action. It's very action-oriented because it's a lot of kind of QTEs with the turn-based. Like you have to be really precise.
Oh shit! I thought it was gonna be turn-based, like Tales of Arise, where it's a little bit more action-oriented, but there's still abilities you gotta pay attention to using to make your fighting experience better.
I mean, you have to go watch the gameplay. It's definitely. It's not turn-based in the sense that I think it's a turn-based that you would actually like because it's not just sitting there waiting for a button or waiting to press X and going through a menu. Like you're literally, you have to time every movement you do correctly.
I'll have to look
into it. It looks really fun.
I do know you're very hyped for Expedition 33. I'm just hyped to get into Onimusha again, whether it be Onimusha 2 or Onimusha Way of the Sword. Those two games are going to be very fun to get into.
But in the end,
it's gonna be very fun to get back into Onimusha 2 as well.
But in the end, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, you can tell us that you agree with us, disagree with us. But
I don't think you can tell us on Spotify. I don't think there's a comment system. But leave your comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube. What do you think that we could have missed that differentiates RPGs from non-RPG games? What are your examples of RPG and non-RPG games that we potentially missed?
Simply put, what makes, in your own words, what makes an RPG stand out from any other genre?
Even if you're
Obviously,
the editor
mostly action
DMing us
adventure.
later, it's fine. Just let us know.
Yeah, because obviously it does. RPGs definitely stand out, but to some, again, the the debate of whether Horizon is an RPG or not was what sparked this conversation. So we decided it's time to make an episode about it.
Yeah,
You can
we
tell
kind
us
of
you're
sparked
wrong.
this conversation, no, the day before, I think, before I was going in for work. Me and him
Yeah,
were talking about, he got into a Twitter feud about Horizon being an RPG. Some people apparently think it's not an RPG. It is. I played it. It is obviously very much open world oriented. It's exploration oriented, but it's an RPG. There's still a lot of elements in that game that make it an RPG that people are forgetting about. So we had to make this episode not only to remind you of what an RPG, of what makes an RPG, but also it's very fun to think of RPG games we've played in the past. I
it
really
is.
got into the nostalgia there of games I've
Uh,
played that are and are not RPGs back in the day. Man, takes me
also,
back.
I do want to point out. Again, I know we said last episode we'd have a special guest. He will still be coming. It's just things happen, so he's gonna be most likely next episode, if unless we do another solo episode, which that will be fun. Soldier obviously already hinted at that, but we'll get into that when we get into that. Um, just want to thank everyone for showing up. We got new subscribers as well. I forgot to even mention that, but yeah, thank you for everyone who has subbed, for sharing, for listening. Whether you're fighting me about RPGs or not, I mean, in the end of the day, we're all passionate gamers. We're gonna agree and disagree on things. Horizon's
Hmm.
still an RPG. Shut up. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, beat up
I was
Soldier. I
gonna
don't
say
know.
Devil May Cry is an RPG, don't fight me, but it's
You,
not. I'm
you know
kidding.
what? Shut up, Soldier. It's an
But
RPG.
also, you missed something, best buddy. I want to give a
What?
special shout out to Geo Metro for the editing. I don't know where you can find him yet. He needs to give me his ads already. He better give me
Yeah.
his ads at the end when he makes it to this point.
Geo explosions.
So,
Appreciate you, Geo.
I also want to give a shout out to LexiWolfz, which you can find on
6969.
Twitter at TateWolves.
Twitch,
And
LexiWolfz.
you can join
Or
her
twitch.tv/LexiWolfz, I should
LexiWolfz,
say.
yeah. And you can join her Discord server, and I would highly recommend commissioning her. The
And
beautiful
join our.
Destined Bloodline background you see here, LexiWolfz. Our beautiful fox and wolf profile pictures, also Lexi. She did great. She's wonderful. Beautiful human being.
Our soon to be new Awakened Destiny photo when I can get to it.
Beautiful.
Also gonna be beautiful.
Yes. Still working on getting that paid off as far as I've heard from Hero. But
Yeah, it's
she
taking
is
me
a
some time,
very
unfortunately.
beautiful artist. She has made most of our emojis as well, most of our emotes on Twitch, and the
Yeah,
emotes on our Discord, which you can find in the description. I really need to start implementing United Destiny in the Discord because we still use the server for Awakened
voice
Destiny
chats.
as well.
And
We're
yeah,
currently in the Awakened Destiny voice chat, or United
and
Destiny
we've
voice chat.
and we do watch alongs when we're able to, with like again PlayStation State of Plays, or if we can do an Xbox event or the Game Awards. Any gaming event we can do a watch party for, we try our best to do. So again, join the server.
I believe there is a Twitch channel for that when we do watch alongs, or I did it on my own channel. I can't remember.
You do it on your own channel, but sometimes if we can't do that, you just stream it through Discord.
I don't
That's
remember,
what you did with the
but-
Game Awards last year, actually. Well, not last year, 2023.
Oh, I think that was pre-Awakened Destiny, but
It was.
I
But that's how you
digress.
usually did.
That is our episode. That is RPGs. And
that
thank
concludes
you,
it.
Geo, for editing this video, and thank you,
And
Lexi, for your beautiful art. If you're hearing this,
And of course, you can always find my socials as well as Soldier Socials. I am on Twitter. I am on Blue Sky. Most of Twitter is hero_destined. Blue Sky is like DestinedHero.bluesky. something. I
I
don't
think it
quite
was
remember how their links work.
bluesky.social.destin. Just look up DestinedHero on Blue Sky. Look up DestinedSoldier on Blue Sky. You'll find us. It's easy.
And then
Or look up
obviously
Kiastis. You can find me on Twitch as DestinedSoldier. Everywhere is DestinedSoldier on Twitter and Blue Sky is Kiastis.
Yeah.
Or hero_destin. Oh wait, that's DestinedHero.
That's Twitter. Or you can find me as Blade Anderson and wait a minute.
Or you can find me as Cloudstrife and wait a minute.
Or you can find me as Destin Vamp, wait a minute.
Or you can find me as Destined_memories, wait a minute.
Or you can find me as Zeos as hit, wait a minute.
Or you can find me as Crimson_memories, wait a minute.
Or you can find me as Mr. wait a minute, I might be leaking things. Geo explosions.
Or you can find me as Geo Metro, wait a minute. Geo, blow me up, podcast out.